if you go way back in time and space, back to the days of the old stone axe, basically, mining and minerals was difficult, very difficult. You need stone axes, and they broke often. So, and plus, just to get a little bit of metal, lead or whatever, was very difficult. Plus, not to mention certain elements like iron is fairly hard to get out of rock. You can't just like ask it to come out. Usually, you have to heat it up, which takes coal or some sort of process, right? And then there's also the refining to make it more pure. I knew how to do this. Other people know how to do this. So anyway, though, but the point is, though, basically is that you have to pretty much melt rock or do something, and then separate out the metal, the iron from the other stuff, which is basically a lot of slag or something. There are also processes to get pure samples out, of course. I don't want to get into the whole forging thing and the nightmare of forging. I was able, and me and my people were able to make something black and gelatinous that was harder than stone, but blah, 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 blah. Okay, so anyway, though, now then, steel and other stuff was a very expensive and complicated process. I, at some point in time, was able to get it refined. I'd been paying for the research of it and was able to basically pull it out through electricity and other ways of getting it out of the substrate, basically. Acid, mercury, there are different ways. We all know this. Each process was very complicated and very involved and very expensive, really, and also harmful to my employees, my workers. Now then, I was paying for research. I was very rich. I could do it for my certain things, but for the vast majority of people out there, which I wanted to provide stuff to, yes, I wanted to help people, but one, I could go broke. Two, you can't eat money. And three, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so at some point in time, not to mention there's also the matter of forced labor. What am I going to do? Put a gun to someone's head and say, go mine, what's it called, so this wussy cake can buy a car. It's like, no, I wasn't going to do that. My people got paid. I had a wage. I think it was a bit a day, or 3 bits a day, or 7 bits, and then 1 penny a day, and then 2 pennies a day, and so on. At one point in time, I think I was paying my employees 7 bits a day. And a bus ride was a bit, or a little bit, it was like 1 penny or 10 increments of penny or whatever. Anyway, a long time ago. Anyway, though, so I was paying my employees X amount of metal a day. And that's another thing, is that if you wanted to go get a hammer, you could take your little bit and you could go take it in and be like, I want to get a hammer. I have 5,200 bits. Here, could you make me a hammer? And a blacksmith could look at you and be like, well, for 2 pennies, I'll do it. And you could get a hammer out of all your bits. It was the only currency I had. The only currency other people had was basically, and it was my system. So it's a silly, stupid system because you can't eat them. So there's always the possibility of, well, you got a lot of bits, but you got no food. Bark, anyone? Would you like some bark? Which was the only food ration of old, which was back to Roman days. If you were starving and you didn't have any food, you could get a bark ration from a tree. That's all we have. You can heat it up, make it softer, and eat it a little bit. It's not that good, and nor is it that healthy. But people could eat it, and it did last a while, and it was the only thing that was proven to be edible that lasted a long, long, long time. So, if kept in a proper dry place. Anyway, one of the first food rations I had available to me, and it was given to homeless people, black people, white people, anyone who didn't have any money that was starving. It's like, here, you can have bark. I'm sorry. That's all we got. And I'm sorry I didn't, you heat it up in water, it turns a little softer, kind of, sort of, not really. But it was only ration that would last through the winter, or for years. It would last for years. Anyway, later on it was used as kindling and blah blah blah. But there were bark rations for a while there, and I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Anyway, it goes back to the days to the First World War, the first real depression, where we actually ran out of food. We've run out of food 3 times in humanity. 2 times about. There was a test, and then and then bark was actually used about 3 times, I believe, total, where there wasn't enough food. Nowadays we have corn and all kinds of other things that, if you're starving, or beef jerky, we've expanded the lasting food just a little bit. So anyway, though, long story short, though, is that we got, if you wanted to buy a car, there was the manufacturing cost, and then there was the metal cost on top of that, because I wasn't going to get into the market of speculation, because a mine could go dry, they could run out of metal, someone could get shot, or they could get fired, or there could be a volcano, and suddenly I have to provide a car that I don't have the metal for. Or someone could be like, well, you're going to have to pay this much for a car, for the metal. And I'm like, you want me to go broke so this other fool can get a car? I don't think so. My employees get paid. So there's my cost, which is manufacturing. And my design. I also charge for design costs too. And then there's their cost for the mining, which is why cars were sold based on weight for a while. And steam engines too, traction engines, and even rivets. There is the metal cost, and then there is the design and my cost. Anyway, so later on, not so important, not really a big thing, but in some ways, even China was sold by weight at one point in time. Because, well, like this spoon, there's the stamping cost, which is almost nothing. It's almost free to go plunk. And then there's also the forging cost too, is a little bit as well. But which those costs, forging and stamping costs, are pretty much, they're definable. Getting the metal for the spoon, well, that's not definable. That's not as easily defined as everyone knows. There might be enough metal around to build 10 of these. There might not be enough metal around to build 1 of these. I wasn't going to get into it. So that's why cars were sold based on weight. Because I wasn't going to get into the whole, well, there's not enough metal. Or the whole, like, oh, well, you don't own that many mines, Lucifer, All, or E. And I was like, you're trying to make me go broke. That's just wrong. And so if a car costs $250,000, it's like, well, that's a $250,000 car. Not my fault. Anyway, though, whatever. Through recycling and all the other stuff, I knew that people were eventually possibly going to gang up against me anyway, and one of my guarantees was going to turn around and bite me in the ass. I knew that. I was like, I'm not going there. I'm not doing that. So my way of protecting myself and my employees and workers, and also, I was fine with buying minerals from private people as well. I had my mines, and then there was other people's mines, even other people's manufacturing complexes. There was a time when I would even, after I was done with manufacturing a car or something, I was like, well, I'm done with the factory. Okay, you kids can go play. Bye, I'm going to go build a new car. And I would take my people and my stuff and go build a new car, and then other people would come in and go build my car, the old car. And then they could provide that car for X amount of money, and they could make money on their own. And I would be building my new car. So anyway, that's kind of how it went. Is I would move on, then people would move in, and then I would move on, and people would move in, and I would move on, and then people would move in. And we kind of just went through life like that. I was just like, and I stayed at the front lines the whole time. Fighting the good fight. Increasing technology. So once I got my lead, I just kind of stayed there. And this is what I was doing when I was 6 and 7 years old. I was like, okay. Just moving, and civilization was forming up behind me. That's another reason, another way that I stayed so young and so much time passed, is I was on the lead the whole time. And I was being cool about it. I was like, okay, I'm done with this factory. I built my amount where my people and my things are okay. Now, I'm done with it. Bye. Let's go build a new one. And I'd build a new one. And then sell. And then, okay, I'm done with it. On to the next. And so me and my people just kind of stayed at the front of civilization, ever increasing civilization behind us. And everyone else got, black people, poor people, foreign people, they got the leftover stuff, the leftover technology, as I stayed on the front lines. Because I was spending the money I was inventing myself many times. And farms and stuff, increasing yields of farms, all that stuff. So, and paying for a lot of research, as well as keeping, like I say too, is that I didn't just pay for research. I had to keep my people fed. In other words, I had to have my own farms. I had to have my own water wells. I had to have my own everything. Because, if you get a tainted water well, great, my people are dead. If I taint my own water well, I'm dead. My people are dead. No more research. No more me. So I had to keep my own water wells, my own pumps, my own fields, my own mines, my own factories, my own forges. I had to have all of that for myself. And then there was everyone else. So anyway, a lot of times I had the best, of course, because, I was the one who was doing it. So, and there were times when the creeks would actually go sour, as they say, or they would go, they would get contaminated from poo, contamination, or other things, to where my mines were the only good fresh source of water because they were so deep. And the water and mines are kind of like, I didn't even believe it one time. So one of the miners was like, yeah, just take a pipe, stick it in the wall, you'll get water out. I was like, no way. He's like, yeah, watch. They filmed it. I was like, wow. Who knew, right? Like, yeah, there's a bunch of water back there. The rock just steals it in. I'm like, okay. Whatever. So anyway.